Greetings to all. My name is Alwin and I represent TechSci Research. We are a market research based management consulting firm. So we keep doing research across the globe, across different countries, and we conduct research across all the verticals that you can think of. Now, in our series of podcasts, which we have started, we are going to pick up topics which normally would affect the general populace. So today's topic is going to be very interesting because it's a part of everybody's life. Uh, to start with a small story, a long time ago, there was a king and he called all his three daughters and asked them how much they loved him. The youngest daughter said, "Oh, as dear as salt." The king was actually very offended because salt was considered very cheap. He almost banished his daughter from the kingdom till he realized his folly when he was served food which was without salt. Salt is actually so important for us. So today we are going to talk on salt, and we have a very esteemed guest who is going to answer a few questions from me. So let's start off. So, but before actually I start shooting questions at you, if you can just give us short introduction about yourself, that will help the viewers to know whom am I talking to.
Thank you, Alvin. Thank you very much, and happy to be a part of this podcast today. And I think such a nice thing to really, uncover what salt means for us. Bit about me: I work as the business head of the salt division in Tata Group. So we call it Core Salt. All we know is, the Tata Salt and Sol variants which are there. Different variants which are there. So yeah, I've been with the organization with Tata's for roughly 12 years, and into this role, I mean, both on the side of selling it on the ground and now leading the category. Roughly kind of 2.5 years while I've been leading the category right now in this.
Okay, thank you so much. So, my first question would be, salt has got so much advertised in recent times, but can you give a short, brief history about salt? What used to happen in the olden ages, and then we can move on to what is happening right now.
See, salt is not a new subject. It's the maximum penetrated category as far as the household penetration is concerned. All of us have been consuming salt since time immemorial, right? So, you will look at all the traditions, cultures that we have in India, they are related with salt. Whether it is about taking the nazar utarna hota hai, or it is talking about the Lakshmi Puja, or if it is even in bridal, when the bride goes to her home, right? Salt is given. Salt was traded in past when it was such an important commodity. We know, all of us know about Dandi Yatra that was there by Mahatma Gandhi, and it has had a very strong cultural significance. The change which has happened, obviously, is for a very long time in history, we used to consume the mota namak, crystal namak that we call, right? And then over the last, I would say 20, 25 years, a lot happened to the industry, and that big rock salt has converted into powdered salt in large part of the country. Even today, South preserves the culture, but I think I'm sure you would also remember in our childhood a lot of salt used to come as big particles, and then it used to go for grinding, and we used to clean that and all of that. But I think broadly last 20-25 years have been very pivotal as far as the way salt consumption is shaped for a consumer. But yeah, it's such an important subject. There are so many idioms, you would say, which is namak haram, namak halal, namak ke vaste, right? Namak ka karz. So namak is something which is so important in the history of mankind, especially India.
Okay. So now what has happened in the last few decades, salt has got so much advertised that it has stopped being the humble salt in the household. I mean, the kind of advertisements that is being done. So how has in the last, let's say 30, 40 years, what has happened?
See, I think okay, if we understand salt, the salt is the cheapest commodity which is there in our kitchen. I jokingly say to my team when I do inductions कि इससे सस्ता सिर्फ रेत होता है, right? So it's obviously it's a brilliant carrier. Everybody consumes salt. It's a brilliant carrier of micronutrients, right? So when and you look at the history of last 20 years, salt has been, especially in India, salt has been such important in like carrying the micronutrient deficiency, micronutrient, especially iodine, with it, and it has practically eradicated the iodine deficiency from the country. So last 20-25 years the subject was obviously being talked more, and that is because government also looked at this product as like the universal way of reaching or getting the micronutrient carrier for the country, and that's where it actually moved from being a humble taste additive to practically a carrier of health, right? So I think that's the piece which we have seen, and a lot of whether it is organizations or government, both have contributed to really making the way salt we still look at important, than it being just a commodity. Although still I would say that while it has been talked more in last 20 years, there is lot more to happen on salt, and maybe we'll talk further.
Sure, sure, sure. So I'll just jump to one of my questions. Like since you spoke about iodine and the government initiative, who, how did this idea germinate? Suddenly that you got to.
Yeah, so see, obviously, the history goes like this. 1980s, the country was had very prevalent disorder of iodine, and more importantly, when you look at even vegetarians, it's even more prevalent because the source of iodine are very few, even for non-vegetarians, and the country is divided into vegetarians and non-vegetarians both. When you look at early 80s, there was the country had one side the thyroid disorders. On the other side, it has a disease called goiter, जिसको we used to hear in DD1, if you remember, iodine की कमी से किसी को भी घेंगा हो सकता है, right? So there was this line which is still printed in our childhood memories, that in 1980s 90s this used to come quite prevalently on the DD and in the TV. Now, when you look at that history, and thanks to a lot of researchers, at least I proudly know the iodine man of India, Dr. Pachandrakant Pandav, and people like him and a lot of eminent researchers, they came back saying that you have to iodize, you have to give iodine to Indian masses, right? And potassium iodate was the carrier, and what it came out is that in some countries it was working well, that they were iodizing salt. Because salt obviously will go into every household. You didn't know some part of the country was rice eating, some part of the country was wheat eating. So there was no universal mode in which you can deliver, the micronutrient, in this case iodine, and then the government agreed to the proposal by the scientists, in the country, that we should go for universal iodization. When universal iodization happened, and as a history, I mean, what I hear is the government obviously approached different salt manufacturers, and particularly Tata Salt remained to be at the forefront, and the group took the bastion to say that we will completely do iodization of whatever salt which is there available. So it took, government mandated that all the salt that is there in the country has to be iodized. It took us obviously as a country some time, that from 1980 to 83, I think it was 83, 84, and from that day till today, almost 41 years, a long journey of iodization has happened. Even today, we know government pushes for iodization to a very great extent, and today we don't see goiter as a problem, right? So it was such a brilliant partnership, I would say, back then, into private sector organizations, Tata's in particular, and government, that they've taken initiative to really iodize, take the potassium iodate and make iodine available for every kitchen.
Okay, cool. Now, I was just reading through and I was actually shocked to know that India is one of the largest producers and exporters of soil. Now, how did this happen? I mean, what has this been happening since ages? Or is this a recent phenomenon?
So, see, on the okay, there are very particular climatic conditions those are required for salt production, right? So, first of all, the salt is of typically of two kinds. One is the source of salt or the salty water can be from the sea, or it could be subsoil, meaning you can take it out of the soil, right? So, India has largely three belts of production. One is Gujarat, which does nearly 80 to 85% of the salt production. Roughly 80% of the salt production happens in single state of Gujarat, right? 10% roughly in Tamil Nadu, 10% roughly in Rajasthan, right? I'm giving very, very broad figures right now. Now, Rajasthan is subsoil because the water inside the soil is salty. But the biggest, why India, particularly Gujarat, has developed to such a great extent in terms of salt production, because salt requires one side salty water and the other side it requires very, very dry weather,
Hmm.
right? So the making salt cycle, the crystallization cycle of salt takes anything between 18 to 25 days, right? So 15 to 25 days, because the crystallization process is such that you have to have clean weather, you have to have easier supply of salty water, and you have to have very clean weather, because it's ultimately, we would know that it's a process of sun drying, right? And majority of salt which is there is sun dried. uh, because of the specific climatic condition which exist in Gujarat and particularly in some parts of Tamil Nadu, India has been able to do the production. And obviously, we know our ports are there on the same side. We also know that the labor is pretty much available. One of the very important part, which is land has to be available for salt production. So I think this is such a great combination of sea being available. I mean, it's a seashore, it's a dry weather, and it is a lot of land available. Obviously, cheaper labor, which is there, and India has been able to produce salt to that extent. In fact, we. As you may know, Tata salt is a vacuum evaporated salt, but and we, the process is completely different. The technology is completely different. But two things which are required still, which is a lot of land and a lot of water, is still available in Gujarat, and hence we produce entire quantity of Tata salt consumed in the country in Gujarat, right? So I think overall you would see that it's a mix of what nature has given us, because of which we are able to make that. And then, being proximity to the port, we have been able to export it to a lot of countries, particularly industrial salt as a country, I mean. And that has taken, I think, the numbers to a bigger level. But what I know, I don't have exact production data, but what I know is that salt production is also scaled up in recent years more than what it was.
Okay. Now, one thing which I really wanted to talk to you about is social media is providing so much of information, and there's now overload of information. So somebody talking about low sodium, somebody talking about fortified salts, and everybody seems to be having their own ideas. It's like going on a diet. Some nowadays intermittent fasting is going on. First they used to say eat 6 times a day, a small portion. Again, same thing with salt. So much of overload of information that it becomes difficult what to believe and what not to believe. So I really to know from the expert what should we believe.
See, okay, I mean, and it's basically depends on what is your need of salt, right? So, just you are very right, Alvin, that there is a lot of information which is floating in the universe, in the ether, about what to consume, right? And obviously, a lot of this information is right, and a lot of it is wrong as well. The simple science behind salt is sodium chloride, right? So and sodium chloride is essential, it is vital. If you don't consume salt, it will be very difficult to survive. And hence, obviously, we know that whenever we have the imbalance of the ions within our body, we consume salt in the form of whether it is namak chini ka pani, whether it is electrolyte, whether it is electron, etc., etc. Absolutely critical for us, for our life. Now, It depends on what is your stage of health, right? And I'm not a health expert, but I'll tell you what I know about salt. Now, for example, I and my father is a hypertension. He had hypertension, and obviously it is a genetic disorder. So I am very sure that I am going to have that. And for me, the for my family particularly, what we need is lower sodium, right? So if it is sodium chloride, uh, uh, any salt generally in as per FSSI 96% is mandatory, but majority of good salt brands, when they are refined well, etc., and it is purer, it will go up to 98-99% sodium chloride. The 1% is something else other than sodium chloride. So what I for my family need is lower sodium, and for last 6 years I have been consuming. There is a variant called Tata Salt Light, which is 15% potassium chloride, 85% sodium chloride. I consume that because I need lower sodium in my body, right? And obviously, since I had the privilege of knowing the chemistry better, so I consume that for last many years because I know I am more towards helping myself on hypertension. If your family doesn't have any such issue, if it is a healthy family, then it is about consuming the right quality of salt, right? What I mean by right quality of salt is that you don't consume, you consume whatever best money can buy, right? Whatever basis, depending on how much are you able to give away for salt from your budget, but a better quality of product. What I mean is any good brand that you can purchase. But general, let's say if I take in our portfolio the orange Tata salt, that is like the best purity of salt that we have in the country. We tested 100 odd salts, and this is the purest salt among the 100 salts that we tested, right? So in that case, what is best is that it is absolutely right amount of iodine, it is right quality, right purity. So if you generally want a very good salt, then it is about the base salt, which is what we consume. And in our portfolio, if I have to say, it is Tata salt, right? The orange salt. I spoke of my family, my particular requirement of being hypertension, father having, and hence we consume Tata Light. If I have, there is another variant called, the industry also has 30% lower sodium. We call it Super Light in our portfolio, that is available. Now, these are, when I cut basic salt, which is what 90% of India consumes, there are other variants of salts. Those are not such big yet at this point of time, but in our portfolio, being Desh ke namak, Desh ki sehat, for the vision of the mission that we stand for, there are fortified salts. So suppose if you have problem on anemia, right? If in your household somebody has lower iodine, somebody has lower iron, then there is a variant called iron fortified salt, which is available, right? And just like we spoke of iodine deficiency in the beginning of the discussion, iron fortification, it serves for a certain percentage of your RDA requirement of iron daily, right? So if you can afford, it's not obviously very costly, but it is costlier than the base salt. If you can afford, you should consume iron salt. So typically pregnant, households with pregnant ladies, households with somebody else, if there is iron deficiency, that is the best salt that you can consume. Another variant, which obviously now the country and more so social media is talking about, is rock salt. We call it Himalayan salt, Lahori namak, Sikha namak, right? So a lot of different ways of saying that. That is the natural salt. That is also 97% sodium chloride. So technically, chemically, it is not as if I have a hypertension, then I need 85% sodium chloride or 70% sodium chloride. Rock salt technically doesn't help me in hypertension because it is still 97 sodium chloride. But what rock salt does is that it has a lot of naturally occurring trace elements, which is like magnesium. It has calcium. It has manganese. It has cobalt, and many small trace minerals which are there. And even that salt is good for our consumption. But that's again a regular salt, right? If I have a particular requirement of hypertension or iron deficiency or zinc deficiency, then I should rather go and consume salts which are fortified. Or if I don't have, if it is a general salt, then for the budget that allows me, I can either consume very good quality, pure refined salt like Tata salt, or I can go and consume a rock salt.
Okay, okay, cool. So what is all this about, premium and organic and specialty salts and all that stuff? So again, this is overload of information. Is it something what you just spoke about, or is that something different? I mean, I don't understand what is organic salt.
So organic salt as a concept is not there much in the country, right? I guess whatever people are referring to organic is all Himalayan to a large extent, right? So while there is organic salt, but it is absolutely minimal as far as the country is concerned at this point of time. I would treat what you said organic as more Himalayan and more the salts which are coming from natural sources, etc. And when you say premium salts are also right now, as far as industry is concerned or the Indian consumer is concerned, I think it is coming more from a point of view of again the pink salt and Lahori salt and all of that. The flavored salt is still a very small portion of the country. Outside of India, flavored salt is big. In India, because we make flavors ourselves, we did try that flavored salt in our repertoire also in Tata's, but it didn't. It wasn't very big. Black salt remains to be still a routine consumption item, but flavored salt is yet to be picked up in the industry. What you spoke of is premium slash organic. Is I think what we see as a wave that is going on the Himalayan pink salt. Which is happening, and yeah, obviously that salt is it's more costly at one point of time. It's also on the other side natural, so it delivers you the trace minerals that I spoke of. However, it is for a general good. It is while and I haven't read at least literature that it is there to help hypertension per se or cholesterol per se, but it is good. It is certainly better for consumption.
Okay, so since you spoke about other countries, do the other countries have different kind of requirements as far as salt is concerned?
So every country has their own specification. So for example, in India, if it is 15 to 30 ppm iodine, Nepal does 30 ppm and above. In certain countries, I know European countries, they need much more iodine than what we spoke of. So different countries have different requirement basis depending on their eating habits and what the cultural way of sourcing iodine or other micronutrients they have. So certainly it is different for different countries, and I guess also the way delivery of salt happens in different countries is varied. So yes, every country has actually made their notions depending on what suits their population.
Oh, you gave good amount of information, but suddenly I also realized that I did not have that kind of information which you just provided. If somebody wants to understand more in terms of which salt is actually good for them or not good for them, how do they reach out? Do you have some kind of web page or something where somebody can go and learn more about their own requirements?
Uh, so first of all, I would say that listen to your healthcare practitioner, right? When you want to do so, the doctor or your family doctor or somebody nutritionist or whoever you consult would be the best person to really consult. That what salt to consume, and that is the first part that any general population should do. As far as our more information about our pages are concerned, in within our web pages, a lot of information is available about varied fortified salts that we have launched. We are also developing in this year, more pages in our website called Nutri Corner that can provide you more general information about. So one, you can go over our current website in tcpl.tatasalt.com, and we are also developing more general public information about what does each salt do to you for that matter. So you will see more coming up from us on www.nutricorner.com and www.tatasalt.com.
Now, since you spoke about how salt is actually manufactured at your place, spoke about vacuum things and industry. Just wanted to understand how is actually technology helping produce good quality salt, and Is the whole process environment friendly? How?
So first of all, is the process environment friendly? Absolutely yes. Is it different from the regular process? Absolutely yes. So there are two kind of ways. There are two ways in which India manufactures salt. One is a solar process in which salt is dried on a base of land, right? So you must have seen a lot of large salt pans, and sun shines over the water, and the water dries out, and it becomes a solar salt. But in that case, it is on open field, right? So it is subject to a lot of external matters that we are not expecting to come into the process. That's a solar salt process, right? Solarization. A majority of India's salt is still solar salt. What Tata salt is about, or what vacuum evaporated technology is about, in this case, there is no the drying of salt, crystallization of salt does not happen on the land. We take concentrated water, and we dry it inside a factory in larger titanium chambers, right? So if you understand, and there are videos around the process, but just to in nutshell, the drying or the crystallization of water is happening inside a chamber, and it is not the sun energy, it is actually the energy from coal. So there is a lot of energy, or the diesel or the coal, that is consumed to make that purity in the salt happen. It's a mixture of centrifugal force with a lot of energy done on the concentrated viscous water, which separates water from salt. So net, unlike the drying that happens on a base of land, which is open, this technology produces salt inside a factory. The salt manufacturing happens inside the factory, and hence you will see every single particle of salt, of Tata salt, is absolutely same. It's very uniform, right? Versus a solar salt can be of any shape. The beauty of vacuum evaporated technology is the purity of salt, because the external matter which is there in the salt is so less that when you dissolve, if you take two glasses, you take a solar salt, you take a vacuum salt will certainly become waterish again, right? You must have seen a lot of videos of Tata salt advertisement or something, wherein the dissolution test happens and there is no impurity left. If it is Tata salt, right? So that's only because of vacuum technology that the impurities are very, very less. And we tested it against 100 salts in the country, different 100 plus brands actually, to just put the purity level. And Tata salt was the purest. That was only because of the technology. It's on the other side very capital intensive. The reason why everybody has not been able to get into that technology is because it requires obviously land on one side, but it is very capex heavy. So it's costly.
Now, what are we going to see at an overall level 10 or 15 years down the line with the salt industry? Do we see more minerals being found? If you can throw some light on that.
Yeah, so see, obviously, a lot the time has to unfold, that we will see. But I guess and I wish that like iodine is something which the salt as a commodity could deliver to the country. I wish that, whether we as Tatas and the other brands, and the ecosystem overall, we carry salt to more meaning, right? And when I'm saying meaning, I mean whether it helps eradicate or helps overall on anemia, it helps on immunity for the country, whether it helps on hypertension in the country, whether it helps on general goodness of the country, right? So I would certainly want that, salt from here becomes the place a level degree better role in terms of carrying fortification for the country. I would certainly say that, the way we are seeing rock salt wave that is there, people are getting more educated, more concerned about what they're consuming. So I'm sure the more information percolates, about different type of salt, not just rock salt and not just white salt, but also the fortified salts, also the low sodium, iron fortified, zinc fortified,
Mhm.
all those kind of salts. People can consume what their health need is, right? So just like oils, now we know that there are different oils, and different oils serve for different purposes. Then there is an olive oil on the one side, and there is a palm oil on the other side, and then there is a spectrum in between. We will I would wish that in the next 10 to 15 years people will get more more educated about what kind of salts are there, and people do choose which salt is best for them, instead of just going behind a fad that okay, this is what everybody is consuming and I should, but my need may be very different. Like I said, my need is hypertension, maybe my neighbor's need is iron, maybe somebody else's need is general goodness, and somebody else wants to just do consume rock salt or cinnamon. So I think that will come in next 10 to 15 years.
Any challenges that you see the industry facing?
uh, See, challenges, I think I would say one certainly, and this is something which all of us do see, which is weather, because it is changing. So we don't know, because like I said, it needs a clean number of days,
Right.
which is there. I'm not representing industry, and I must say that maybe the body of salt will have more, but certainly what I see happening in last 3, 4, 5 years is that the weather is a little more erratic. So on one year we see good production, on the other year we see some rains in between. It takes away a lot of production time, which is there, and obviously that impacts the fluctuation in prices and in the production volume that is there. So certainly that is one piece which is becoming a reality. Every year we see some unplanned rains, or I mean unseasonal rains, which are happening, and obviously we are also kind of tuning our supply chain towards that, but it adds cost to the overall industry, which is there. And I guess uh, um, yeah, I'm sure, as you speak to more salt experts, you will see more challenges what others do face in the industry.
Okay. So Raj, finally, one last question. Anything that you would like to tell the general viewers, since like everybody is consuming salt. So anything that you would like to share?
Yeah, so see, one, I would say that because a lot of information is there out, whether salt is good, salt is bad, which salt, all of that. Like you alluded to that beautifully. I would say that one, salt is absolutely necessary. It's vital. We can't live without salt. One on taste, one on health. What is necessary is that we consume it in right proportions, consume it in right quantities, right? So it's about more responsibly consuming the salt. We call it responsible salt consumption. So measure the quantities that you need to measure, right? There are various recommendations from different health authorities which are there. So that is one, that it's very, very critical that you consume right salt, you consume the right quantity of salt. And please, like I said, there are different kind of salts. It could be regular, it could be purer iodine carrier, it could be fortified, it could be rock salt, it could be any other salt. So please do take the time to also understand which salt is best for your family need, and then consume the salt rather than going with general assumption. And if you want any help, certainly you can dial into our customer care, for any information that you may have. But I would also say that you consult your whoever is your you believe for health, whether it is nutritionist, your doctor, to consult which salt is best for you. But it's certainly vital, and I wish that just like it is sold iodine deficiency in India, it will carry salt will mean health for the nation. And I wish and I feel that we as Tata Salt will be able to participate our bit into the nation's building of health with what we carry in our salt quality and the micronutrients that we carry with our salt.
Right. Thank you so much for taking time out, and I'm very sure at least I got a lot of information talking to you today, and I'm sure the viewers also are going to benefit from the answers that you provided us. Thank you so much for your time, and it was a pleasure.
Thank you, Alwin.
Right.
Pleasure is all mine. Thank you for this opportunity.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much, viewers. We'll be soon coming out with another interesting topic. Stay tuned with TechSci Research.